Yes. So now, in the last class, we have discussed about acceptance, isn't it? What do you mean by acceptance? When there is a proposal or an offer, when there is a proposal or an offer by the one party, other party gives their assent or consent or willing full yes. That is equivalent to acceptance that we have discussed. Yes. Now, in today's class, we are going to see about consideration. Then we have discussed various case laws also. Now, in today's class, we are going to discuss about consideration. So, what do you mean by consideration? Can you tell me what do you mean by consideration? Consideration means something for something. That is something in return. That means what? If one party gives you something, you should give something to them. When one party offers you something, you should give something in return. That may be any money, it may be money, or it may be something else. So now we need to see what do you mean by consideration. So see this, when a party promises to do something, it must get something in return. So that something in return, either it may be a benefit or loss. If it is a benefit, so what happens? If it is a benefit, it is good for the party, one who is making the offer. If it is a loss, it is bad to the offerer, isn't it? So that we need to see now. See this, consideration means something for something or something in return is known as consideration. So when a party promises to do something, it must get something in return. What do you mean by something? It may be a benefit or loss, which moves from one party to another in a contract is termed as consideration. To be more precise, we can see the definition. We can see the definition of consideration. See the definition of consideration. Section 2 clause D of Indian Contract Act 1872 defines it as when at the desire of the promisor. So it is very important. At the desire of the promisor means here consideration should move at the desire of the promisor. If it moves at the desire of the someone else, then it cannot be treated as consideration. For that we need to see the case law also. There is one case law that we need to see, that we'll discuss later. Yes, at the desire of the promiser, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing. So promisee means the acceptor. Acceptor or any other person has done or abstained from doing. That means what? Any other person means here there can be a third party to consideration. Do you agree with me? There can be a third party to a consideration. Do you agree with me? Consideration can be given by anyone, those who are not a party to the contract. Suppose A and B, there is a contract between A and B, C can give consideration. Do you agree with me? Whether C can give consideration on behalf of B to A, can you tell me whether C can give consideration on behalf of B to A? Whether it is possible? Yes, it is possible. Consideration can be obtained from other person, this third party also. So now that promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing. So abstain means restrict himself from doing certain act. So or promises to do or abstain from doing something. Such an act or abstinence or promise is called consideration for the promise. So now we can see the example here. X promises Y not to file a suit against Y if he pays 20 lakh due to X. So here what happens? X says that if you don't give the due amount, so Y has taken some loan from X, that is 20 lakh. Now Y need to pay that amount. So now what X says, if you don't pay the amount, I will sue you in the court of law. I will put a case in the court of law. So that is the meaning of this sentence. Now you see the abstinence here. What is the abstinence? Not filing the suit. That means not doing something is an abstinence, or restricting oneself from doing anything, that is abstinence. Not filing a suit in the court of law of X In this example is the consideration for wise payment of 20 lakh. So here consideration means there should be two sides, isn't it? So X will not put a case in the court of law and Y will pay the amount to X. So there are two sides. So whether it is clear now, whether this is clear about consideration, there are two party and there are two side. One party should give you something or one party should do something. Other party in return of that something, they should give benefit or loss. They should give benefit or loss. So in short, you can say that consideration means something in return. Something in return means consideration. So whether it is clear now, consideration, whether it is clear about consideration, can you tell me? Narsima is saying yes. Narsima saying yes. Okay. So yes, Ankita is saying yes. So now it is very clear. I hope it is very clear. Consideration. Now we need to see. Now we need to see the legal rules or what are the essential rules are there for valid consideration that we need to see. So consideration is a must for every contract. So first thing is consideration is must for every contract. So there is a famous rule that is there is no contract without consideration. That is contract without consideration is void. Do you agree with me? Contract without consideration is void. Whether it is true or false, contract without consideration is void. Whether it is true or false, can you tell me now? Can you tell me? Contract without consideration is void. Yes, true. Why? Because consideration is one of the features of the valid contract or one of the rules of the valid contract that we have discussed. Lawful consideration we have discussed. So now you see, consideration is must for every contract means if consideration is missing in a contract, the promise becomes gratuitous. Gratuitous promise is not enforceable in the court of law. So what do you mean by gratuitous act? What do you mean by gratuitous act? Can you tell me? Gratuitous means what here? Can you tell me? What do you mean by gratitude? What do you mean by gratitude? What do you mean by gratitude? Anyone? Can you tell me now? Gratuitous act. What do you mean by gratitude? Gratitude means what? See, gratitude means with your own will. Gratitude means you are doing the act freely. You are doing the act freely. No one has asked you to do the act, but you are doing it on your own. Freely you are doing the act. Suppose you are giving gift to someone else. That is a gratitude, isn't it? That person has not asked with you to give the gift, but still you are giving the gift to the person. So that is a gratuitous act or voluntary. Suppose you are giving some charity purpose, you are donating something. That person has not asked, but you are giving the money to them. So again, that and all comes under gratitude. See this. Gratuitous promise is not enforceable in the court of law. Why? See now. Example. A promises to give an imported car to B on his wedding as a gift. So now B will receive car from A on his wedding day. Okay. Now B cannot enforce this promise if A fails to give the gift. Why? Why B cannot enforce the promise if A fails to give the gift? What is the reason? B has not done anything. That means for giving the gift, B has not done anything. He is simply sitting there and he is receiving the gift. Whether he has done anything for that or whether he has given any consideration for that, no. There is only one side transaction, isn't it? There is only one side transaction. That means only party is giving you something and you are not giving something to that particular party. That means you are not paying something to that particular party. Yes, so that is the meaning of this one. See this, consideration without consideration contract is not valid. So if A fails to give the gift, then B has done nothing to A, so he cannot enforce. B cannot enforce it in the court of law. That is the first thing. It must move at the desire of the promiser. It must move at the desire of the promiser. That means an act done at the desire of the third party is not consideration. See what example you can give. So there are three persons. A, B, C. There are three persons A, B, C. So now there is a contract between A and B. So okay, now A is the offerer, also known as proposer. So B is the offeree, also known as promisee. Now what happens? Now B will do certain act at the desire of C. C is not involved in the contract between A and B. C is a third party. Now B suppose does something, that is offeree or the promisee does something on the as per the direction of the third party. In that case what happens? In that case what happens? Contract is void. Why? Because there is no consideration. You see, there is no consideration. Why? Because it must move at the desire of the promiser. Promiser means offerer. Offerer. So now there, that is the second point, or that is the second rule governing the valid consideration. Now third one, it may move from promisee or to any other person. It may move from promisee, so one E is missing, correction, or any other person. See now, consideration from a third party or stranger to the consideration is also called valid consideration. That means I will tell you how. Suppose I am selling my property. Suppose I am selling my property to B. So I am A is selling property to B. So now B, what he needs to do? He need to pay me the amount, isn't it? Instead of giving it directly, what B will do? B will send the amount with C. B will give the direction to C that you should give the amount to A. Okay, now C comes to me and give the amount to me. So now what happens? In this case, what happens? Now I am receiving the consideration from the stranger because he is not a party to the contract. Only me and B is a party to the contract. That is A and B is a party to the contract. So whether this is clear, so consideration can be received from stranger also. That means third party also. However, stranger to the consideration only able to sue if and only if he is a party to the contract. But he cannot sue in the court of law. That means he cannot put the case in the court of law. What he can do, in order to file the case in the court of law, he should become the party to the contract. That means now A and B is a party to the contract. Now C also do some does he has to do something to get into the contract. Then only then contract becomes A B C. Now it is between only A and B. Okay, so that is the meaning of this one. It may move from promisee or from any other person. Consideration may be positive or negative. Okay, that is correct. Why? Because see this, positive act means promise to do something. Positive act means you are doing something. Negative act means you are restricting, or you are restricting yourself from doing something. Promising to not to do something is a negative act. Promising to do something is a positive act. So what are the positive and negative act we need to see now? See now, example for positive act. See, example, A promises to pay 5,000 to B on the delivery of good worth 5,000. So now B will give certain goods to A. In return, A has to pay 5,000 because that is the value of the good is 5,000. So this is the example of positive consideration. Why? Because B is going to receive money from A. Isn't it positive consideration? So now, what do you mean by negative consideration? See the example for negative consideration. A's promise of not filing the suit against B. So here what happens? B is a debtor, A is a creditor. So A has given some money to B and B has not paid the amount. So in that case, B is a debtor. A debtor on B's promise to pay 1,000 more than the amount due. So what A says, if you pay me more than the amount, that means suppose 5,000 is due, now you need to pay me 6,000. Then only I will not file a suit in the I will not file the case in the court of law. In that case, not filing the suit, not filing the suit is a negative consideration. Not filing the suit is a negative consideration. You see, it is an example of negative consideration. It may be past, present, or future. Okay, so it can be of any three type, but under Indian law, past consideration is also valid consideration. Past consideration is also valid consideration. Why? We need to see the example now. A renders some service to B at latest desire. That means at B's desire, A gives some service. After a month, B promises to pay 6,000 to A. Suppose there is a painting. Let us take the example of painting. Okay. Now we will take the example of painting. Now B will tell to A, that is B will tell to A that he has to do some painting. Okay. Now A, what he will do? A will do the painting, but B has not made the payment. So B will make the payment only after 1 month. Only after 1 month. So in this case, it becomes past consideration. Why? Because act is already done. Consideration you are giving at a later period. So that is the reason here. See this. A renders some service to B at latest desire. After a month, if B promises to pay 6,000 to A for the service rendered by him, it is the case of past consideration. That means you are paying the amount for the act already done. You are paying the amount for the act already done. So that is past consideration. Okay. Now next one. It need not to be adequate. It need not to be adequate means, what do you mean by need not to be adequate? Can you tell me? Consideration need not to be adequate means what? Can you tell me now? Anyone? Consideration need not to be adequate means what? Anyone can answer. Unmute yourself and answer. Consideration need not to be adequate means what? Can you tell me? Comment in the chat box. Need not to be adequate. What do you mean by need not to be adequate? Consideration need not to be of equal value. Consideration need not to be of equal value. Suppose the value of my property is 1 crore. The person, when giving the amount, he may not give 1 crore. He may give less than that. He may give less than that. Let us assume that he pays me 80 lakh. He pays me 80 lakh. Value of the property is 1 crore. Now the person purchasing the property pays me 80 lakh. So now what happens? Consideration is need not to be adequate. But as per the law, what they say, there must be a consideration. It doesn't matter whether it is adequate or inadequate. There must be some kind of consideration, but it doesn't matter whether it is adequate or inadequate. See this, something is given and something is not received, or something is given and something received, not necessarily of equal value. Court will enforce the consideration even if it is inadequate. Even if it is inadequate. See this example. S agrees to sell his house worth 50 lakh to R. Now for just 10 lakh, yes agrees to sell the house property value of 50 lakh for just 10 lakh. Provided yes has is given consent freely. That means what? In this example, though the consideration received by yes is inadequate, the contract is perfectly valid, because we will assume that provided S has given the consent freely. That means it is not obtained by any physical threat, mental force, misrepresentation, fraud, etc. It is by his own will he is selling his property of 50 lakh for just 10 lakh. For just 10 lakh, no one has forced him, so he is selling it on his own. So that is the meaning of this one. Consideration when need not to be adequate. So next one, it must be real and illusory. It must be real and not illusory. So if consideration is illusory or imaginative, impossible or uncertain, it becomes unreal and it is invalid. That means what? See the example. A is promising B to run at 100 km per hour if B pays 10,000. So here A says that I will run. A promises to B to run at 100 kilometer. Okay, see this. A says to B that he will run at 100 kilometer if B pays 10,000 to him. So it is not possible. Why it is not possible? Person cannot run. Anyone cannot run at 100 kilometer per hour. Fastest animal on the planet, cheetah runs at 70, I think 70, 75 kilometer per hour. So it is not possible for human. Yes. So now eighth one. See this, performance of the existing obligation is no consideration. What do you mean by existing obligation? Can you tell me what do you mean by existing obligation? What do you mean by existing obligation? Suppose the person has to perform duty as per the law, then it cannot be treated as consideration. Suppose you are giving a person to giving any person certain amount to do the duty which he has to do. Even if you don't pay the money, he has to do that particular duty. In that case, what happens? Consideration is not valid. See this. The performance of an act by a person who is already bound to perform the same, either as a public duty or under the contractual obligation, cannot be considered as a consideration for a contract. Okay, so now you need to see the example. See this. Client promises to pay an additional sum of 5,000 to his lawyer if suit is successful. See, now this is not a valid consideration. Why? Because what is the duty of a lawyer? What is the duty of a lawyer? To fight for his client. To fight for his client, or to give the justice to the client. That means whether winning or losing, that doesn't matter, but he has to perform his duty in the court of law. So that is the duty of the lawyer. See this. Promise is void because lawyer is already under pre-existing contractual obligation to render a service so as to win the suit. So whether this is clear, this example, whether this is clear, the example of lawyer, why consideration is void in this case, we know because he has to perform his duty as per the contract or as per the obligation. Whether this is clear, example of lawyer, whether it is clear, can you tell me? Can you tell me now whether it is clear? Any doubt? Narasimha is saying yes. So why others are not answering? So please answer. How will I come to know, or else if there is any doubt? So Shifali is saying once repeat. Okay, okay, fine. So now you see, performance of the existing obligation is no consideration. That means, suppose any person has to do the duty as per the contract or as per the obligation under Indian corporate law or Indian business law. In that case, what happens? In that case, you cannot pay that person additional amount to get the duty out of him. So that is why here there is a case. Case is given. Client promising to pay additional sum of 5,000 to the lawyer if suit is successful. So here client need not give additional sum of 5,000. Why? Even if client doesn't give 5,000, lawyer will do the duty, isn't it? Lawyer has to do the duty, isn't it? That to fight for his client. That is the duty of the lawyer. Even if there is no incentive given to the lawyer, he has to do the duty. So that is the meaning of this. If there is a pre-contractual obligation or duty, then you cannot give something to them in order to perform the duty. So whether this is clear, whether this is clear now, can you tell me whether this is clear? Shifali is saying yes. So I hope this is clear. Eighth point. So it must not be illegal, immoral, or opposed to public policy. It must not be illegal. That means any act which is not enforceable in the court of law, killing someone, kidnapping someone, and printing the fake currency note. So these all things involving injury to a person or property of another. So in that case, consideration is not valid. Consideration becomes void. So there are 9 points. There are 9 points regarding the essential rule of the consideration. What are those points? First one, consideration is necessary for every contract. Then it must move at the desire of the offerer itself, that is promisor, and it may move from promisee or any person. That means from third party also you can receive consideration. It can be positive or negative. That means person has to do something, or person promising to not to do something. That is negative consideration. It may be past, present, or future. It need not to be adequate. That means it need not to be of equal value. Then it must be real and not illusory, imaginative, impossible to perform is not considered as consideration. Pre-contractual obligation is not a consideration, and it should not be illegal. So there are 9 points. So any doubt regarding these 9 points of consideration, essential rules of valid consideration. Any doubt regarding these 9 points? And you can ask now. If there is any doubt, you can ask. Any doubt regarding these 9 points? Yes, answer. Any doubt, you can ask me now. Yes, Shifali is saying no. I hope there is no doubt. Others also, I hope there is no doubt. Ankita is saying Okay, no. Kushal, no doubt. Pooja, no. Okay. Now we need to see case law. Now we need to see last one. We need to see case law. Today's class we need to see one case law. Durga Prasad versus Baldev, 1880. Durga Prasad versus Baldev, 1880. So what is this case law is about? What is this case law is all about? This case law is about not moving the consideration at the desire of the promiser. What is this case law is about? Not moving the consideration at the desire of the promiser. If you see the rules here, once you see the rule, what is the rule for valid consideration? There is one rule is mentioned. See this. It must move at the desire of the promiser. So Durga Prasad versus Baldev case law, that is the exception to this rule. That is the exception to this rule means it does not move at the desire of the promiser. So now what happens in this case law that we need to see. See the case law now. See this case law. So now Durga Prasad is referred as D now. Durga Prasad is referred as D and Baldev is referred as B, henceforth. Okay. Now, in this case, D spent a certain sum of money on improvement of market. So both the people, Durga Prasad as well as Baldev, they are some dealers. So they are in the marketplace. So they have, I think they have shop. Okay. So now these spent certain sum of money on improvement of market at the desire of district collector. So now this case law is about Durga Prasad and Baldev, but who is the district collector? Can anyone tell me? So from the starting itself, you can make out who is a district collector. So who is a district collector? Can you tell me now? So Durga Prasad and Baldev is a party to the contract. So who is a district collector? Anyone? District collector. No, no. Baldev is not a district collector. Baldev is not a district collector. So yes, correct answer. Narasimha, third party. Yes, correct answer. So now district collector is a third party. So parties are Durga Prasad and Baldev. District collector is a not a party to the contract. He is outsider. He is a third party. Okay. Now, in consideration of B, a shopkeeper who was using a shop in a market. So B has one shop. That means Baldev has one shop in the market. He promised to pay some money to D. Why he is promised to pay some money to D? Because D is doing improvement of market. D is doing some development, infrastructure development in the market at the order of district collector. So you remember this thing at the order of district collector, D is doing improvement. So now what B feel, Baldev what Baldev will feel. So I need to contribute something to D because he is doing development of the market. Okay. So now this is clear. Now after that what happens? After that, B, that is Baldev refused to pay the amount he has promised, saying that it was not done at his request. So now Baldev says that you are doing improvement not at my request, you are doing the improvement at the request of district collector. So who here, what do you mean by you, Durga Prasad? Durga Prasad. So Durga Prasad is doing the improvement at the request of district collector. That is why now Baldev will refuse to pay the amount to Durga Prasad. So now Durga Prasad will file a suit against B in the court of law. But what the judgment is given? Judgment is given saying that agreement is void itself. Agreement is void being without consideration and consideration did not move at the desire of the promiser B. Okay, so there is no consideration between Baldev and Durga Prasad. That is the first thing. And consideration did not move at the desire of or desire of the promiser B. So Durga Prasad is doing the work not at the request of Baldev. He is doing the work at the desire of district collector. So that is the reason this contract itself is cannot be enforced in the court of law. It is void. So Durga Prasad cannot claim the money from Baldev. That is the final conclusion. Durga Prasad cannot claim the money from Baldev. So whether this case law is clear, very small case law, whether it is clear now, whether this is clear, this case law Durga Prasad versus Baldev, consideration not moved at the request of a promiser. Whether this is clear. Any doubt regarding this case law you can ask now. Any doubt regarding this case law? Okay. Total how many case law to study, sir, overall? Okay. So 10 case law. 10 case law you need to study. So if you see the textbook, they have given many case law. For each and every example, they will give case law. But in our syllabus, there is 10 case laws. So only those case laws I am discussing with you. So whenever I am discussing with you, I consider only those 10 case laws. Other case law I am not discussing. Whether that is fine? No issue, right? Other case law I am not discussing because that is not there in our syllabus. Whether that is fine? Yes. Yes. Only 10 case laws you need to study. So till now we have studied the case law of what and all case laws we have studied. I will tell you. First is we discussed about Balfour versus Balfour. Do you remember Balfour versus Balfour? Husband wife. There is no legal relationship between husband and wife. Do you remember that case law? Balfour versus Balfour. Then we discussed about Carlyle versus Carbolic. This one smoke ball company. So medical preparation that we discussed. General offer offer need not to be communicated to the person who has made it. So that we discussed Carlyle versus Carboli. Then Harvey versus Spacey we discussed. Do you remember Harvey versus Spacey? That ball pen case law we discussed in the last class. Harvey versus Spacey. Then now we discuss Durga Prasad versus Baldev. So almost we discussed now 4 case laws now itself. So remaining 6 case laws we will discuss in the coming chapter. Whenever it comes, we are going to discuss that. Okay. So no problem, right? In that whether there is a problem. So in the next class we need to discuss no consideration, no contract. What do you mean by no consideration, no contract? Whether there is an exception. If there is an exception, what and all we need to see. Then after that, privity of contract, that means stranger to the contract cannot sue, that we need to discuss in the next class. Then what else? Yes, capacity to the contract. Last topic is capacity to the contract, that we are going to see.